Nothing really new to report on the trade front in regards to Erik Karlsson. Tony DeAngelo has been placed on waivers and cleared for purposes of a buyout, and we're going to look at some stuff from prospect development camp. So there's not a whole lot of news to report in regards to Erik Karlsson today. There was a little snippet that I'm going to get to, but first we're going to do the comment replies. And then after we're done doing all that stuff, then pretty much the rest of the show is going to be talking about Prospects Development Camp. So the first one we're going to cover here is from Ben and Andrews, 7510. Thanks again. You've been a repeat commenter. I appreciate it. Do you think Teuvo could be moved, or is his value so low right now that it just makes more sense to hold on to him, hope for a bounce-back season? So I replied to him in the comments, but I'm going to tell you guys pretty much what I said with a little bit more detail when I replied to him. It is the only way I really see Teravainen getting moved is if he's part of a larger trade. I think it's a completely accurate assessment right now to say that he would not really be anything that you could get a whole lot for, and I basically said we'd be lucky to get a third-rounder for him with as bad of a season as he had, or I don't want to say bad, I want to say a down season by the standards of what we know he's capable of. During the offseason, he very well could take the time to recover from the broken hand, the concussions, and the issues that he was having with his respiratory system and everything like that, and we could see Teuvo return to form, and if he doesn't, it wouldn't really be that detrimental to let him walk in the event that we didn't sign him to an extension before that. Teravainen's value right now still exists in the capacity of the special teams. So him being with Aho on the penalty kill is probably the most important thing. Natchez has shown that he's got some capacity to be Aho's partner on the penalty kill, but Teravainen and him have been doing that for years, and they've been incredibly successful at it. They're also really good at putting them two together on the power play and making some magic. I think Aho and Teravainen's days of playing a lot of time 5-on-5 together are over unless we sign probably two more forwards to maybe mix the depth chart up a little bit, but even then, I think you're going to see Aho paired with Natchez more often than not in the event that he continues to play wing and is not moved to center. I think that you're going to see Jarvis start getting more ice time in more critical situations because his development is coming along very well, and he's showing that he's a very capable player in clutch situations. So I think Teravainen's days of doing the heavy lifting that he was doing would be over regardless, just because of some of the new players that the Hurricanes have filling bigger roles. So when it comes to Teravainen, you definitely do have some options there, but I think right now the safe play is just to keep him if you don't include him in a larger part of the trade. Bennett also commented and said 100% my thoughts as well. If he plays this year, great. You can keep him through the playoffs and move in at the deadline if an extension can't get worked out. That's absolutely true. And like I said, with as deep as the Hurricanes prospect pool is, not so much with forwards as it is with defensemen, but it's still pretty deep up front. Even if you don't get anything in return for Teravainen, it still wouldn't be the end of the world. It would be nice to get some sort of return for him, or even better, I'd love to see his play bounce back. I'd love to see him be able to get back to where he was and be utilized more 5-on-5 and, help out working the point on the power play like he was before and everything like that, and we could see that happen. So if he's taking this offseason to focus on overcoming his respiratory issues and overcoming his concussion issues, Teravainen definitely could have a bounce back season, and I hope he does. I really like Turbo, and I would love to see in some capacity or another, him and Aho have that chemistry that they had before and then play together more often, because then you're opening up more options of how you can shuffle up the forwards in regards to where you put Svechnikov, where you put KK, where you put Jarvie. There's a lot more options there with that. Thank you very much for the comments, and keep coming back, and I'll keep reading them. The Huge Caniac, I am happy to see you keep coming back, sir. Thank you. He says, in the dog days of summer, it's good to get some news, if anything at all. Keep up the videos, bro. Lemieux will be a nice change for us when we finally have an agitator on our team. Yeah, I wasn't expecting them to go get him, but I really wasn't expecting them to go get Michael Bunting either. And if Tony DeAngelo still comes back to the Hurricanes, which is going to be covered, what's going on with that, at least everything we know is going to be covered later in the show. I don't think we're going to have a boring game all season between those three. Now, the thing with Lemieux is I wouldn't expect him to be in the lineup very often. He's basically going to be a 13th forward. And, I can see him getting employed in those games where it's like you're going to have someone on the other side of the ice that's going to be problematic, and Bunting is not going to be the only guy out there to deal with him in those games, i.e., you're going to have games where you have to worry about Brad Marchand. You're going to have games you have to worry about Garnett Hathaway. You're going to have games like that where you have to worry about those guys, and in order to counteract those things, that's why you bring in someone like Brendan Lemieux, who I don't want to say expendable, but him going in the box for 5 minutes is not going to hurt your chances of scoring a goal. Considering the lack of physicality and how the Hurricanes got pushed around basically the entire 4-goal sweep, yeah, that was one thing that was sorely lacking, was the sandpaper. It's almost arguable that the sandpaper was a bigger problem than the scoring, and they have solved the sandpaper problem well over, especially with the addition of Lemieux. And the scoring problem has been greatly mitigated, if not completely solved, by adding Bunting and Orlov. And I don't think that they're done making moves yet. I don't think Erik Karlsson's going to be the guy that comes here. And if he does come here, he's not the final piece of the puzzle to solving it. They have plenty of scoring from the blue line. Where they need to find it at is in their top 6. Secondary scoring is great, but the Hurricanes have plenty of that as it is, and that's not exactly where they need to improve. That being said, Erik Karlsson is on another level when it comes to offense from a defenseman. So there's that to be considered as well. If we didn't already have Burnsy, I'd say get Erik Karlsson, but that's not a problem. So we'll see how all that shakes out and everything. But the speculation that I have, and this is just my personal speculation, this is just my guesstimation, I have absolutely nothing to base this off of. I don't think Erik Karlsson is coming to the Hurricanes. So the Huge Caniac, thank you very much for the comment. And in regards to what I was just talking about, segueing into that now, we have a tweet here from, I'm not even going to try and pronounce whatever that this is supposed to be in the middle, but Matt Megar, I guess that's how you say it, Megar or something along those lines. I did go back and listen to this myself to make sure that it was actually said, but on the SJHN podcast, the guy who runs that, I can't remember his name right now, says a source told him that the Let's Go Canes are hanging around and seeing if they can get EK65 on a bargain like they did with Brent Burns. I don't see it being like that. That he isn't their plan A. If they can get a steal, they won't be. If they can't get a steal, they won't be in much longer. So that's exactly what I have been thinking the entire time with all this, because the Hurricanes really don't need to add a defenseman like Erik Karlsson. As I stated before, if you don't have Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson is a great trade target, especially with 4 years remaining on his contract, because that's 4 years you can pair him with Slavin. But we would kind of throw the balance of the team off, and if you get someone like Erik Karlsson and keep Burnsy, which I hope to God they don't move Burnsy, he's been great for us in my opinion, then at that point you possibly upset the balance of having 3 left-handed and 3 right-handed defensemen, since you'd be bringing on another right-handed defenseman with Erik Karlsson. And we still don't know what's going to happen in regards to Pesce and Shea, because that has been so quiet that it's not even funny. I'm assuming that whatever happens with Erik Karlsson is going to dictate a lot more in regards to what happens with Shea and Pesce. Now, I don't think that Erik Karlsson is going to be worth the cap hit, at least not over the course of 4 years. That's why the Hurricanes are trying to get such a steal on him. I'm pretty sure they're trying to involve a third team to get as much salary retention as possible if they do want to bring him in. But having Erik Karlsson at this point would be a luxury, not a necessity. If they sign Tony DeAngelo to the exact same contract, because he's a free agent now because he cleared unconditional waivers, I'm going to get to that in a moment. If he signs with Carolina for $1 million like he did last time, and he has the same productivity that he did before, where he had, I believe it was 51 points in 64 games, either way, it was a decent amount for a defenseman, he could still replicate that kind of production because so much of it came on the power play, not a ton of it came 5-on-5. And additionally to that, you get someone who will go out there and, if he goes and sits in the box for 5 minutes because he dropped the gloves, you're not really losing anything 5-on-5. Tony DeAngelo's value comes on the power play, and his biggest 5-on-5 value is what he does on offensive zone faceoffs in terms of generating scoring chances. Even if Philly had retained 50% and he comes to Carolina on a $2.5 million cap hit, getting that kind of production for far less. It's not as much production, but you're getting it from elsewhere as far as what you're going to get from blue line scoring. You're already getting it from Burns. To a much lesser degree, you're getting it from Slavin, Pesce. You got a ton of it from Shea this season, and even though he's not going to stick around, you're going to get similar and more than likely better results with Orlov. So, like I said, I think Carolina's maybe just driving up the price for Erik Karlsson, and then they're not going to actually do anything. So I just don't see where he fits in. As it stands right now, let's just say theoretically Pesce and Shea both get traded, and you don't get Karlsson. Your top 4 defensemen are still Jacob Slavin, Brent Burns, Jalen Chatfield, and Dmitry Orlov. Basically, at that point, you don't have a top 4. You have 2 top pairs that you can employ in different situations depending on who just got off the ice and who needs a break before their next shift, what side of the ice you want the face-off to be on even. You have so many different options with that. So if Erik Karlsson is really not the Hurricanes' plan A, and Tony DeAngelo is still the plan A, they're about to bring him back for a lot less money than what they would have been paying him with trading for him in Philadelphia, retaining 50%. At this point, you're looking at getting him for probably $1 million again, and potentially even getting him at league minimum. So the way that I personally see this shaking out, Erik Karlsson does not come to the Canes. Tony DeAngelo does, and he fits the role that he should be fitting on pretty much any team. Third pair, right-handed defenseman, tough guy, power play, quarterback specialist, and leave it at that. He doesn't need to be playing more than, say, 13, 14 minutes a night if you have, say, 6 penalties a night. Dubas is known to overpay star players. Now, I don't know if he's learned his lesson because of how Toronto's kind of cap-strapped and he walked away from that situation. So, now, is he going to repeat some of those same habits in Pittsburgh? I don't know. All things considered, I can safely say he is far more likely, astronomically more likely to overpay for any player versus Carolina's front office. Carolina's front office is almost the exact opposite. They're incredibly frugal. So here we have some really awesome news. Andrei Svechnikov has gotten back on the ice for the first time since his surgery. So, quick story about that game. I'll show y'all something real quick. For those of you listening on audio, I just took my hat off. I'm not ashamed of the fact that I shaved my head because I didn't have a whole lot of hair left up there to begin with, but I just kind of learned to embrace it. And when Derek Stepan signed with the Hurricanes for the second consecutive season, and Nino Niederreiter was gone, so he got his original number of 21 back, I was like, that's really cool because that's the number that I wear when I play. And I was working at Pure Hockey at the time. I got my hands on a reverse retro using my employee discount, and I decided I was going to put Step's name on that because we've got the same haircut. I've got a beard, not nearly as epic as his, and he's way better at hockey than I am. But I just thought it would be cool just because I was looking for someone to get the number 21 with, and I never got around to getting one with Niederreiter's name on it, and I just felt like the Step one fit me perfectly. I normally wear hats on stream because, one, thematics of having a hockey-related hat on a hockey-related show, and two, it kind of makes it easier just for the lighting and everything not to reflect off of my head and kind of mess up the focus of the camera. And I have not worn that sweater again since, because the first game I wore it to was the one where we got destroyed 4-0 by the eventual Stanley Cup champions, and Svechnikov tore his ACL. So when I was at that game and I was watching this happen, I remember it was very weird. He had just made a really good defensive play on Jack Eichel where he hustled back, stick lifted, and took the puck and had started rushing back the other way, and this was before this game got really bad. And it was shortly after that, and I believe it was even on the same shift. He was at center ice. He goes to turn the other way. He pitches forward in a weird way. He gets off the ice at the end of his shift, goes down the tunnel, comes back out, but then he didn't come back out for the third period. So additionally to this, it looks like he's using a different stick. I mean, not that that really matters in this situation, but he normally uses one of the Vapor sticks, or a stick from the Vapor line, like the Hyperlight. And this one appears to be a Nexus Sync. See if he changes up the kick point, maybe tries out a mid-kick stick like the Nexus Sync as opposed to what he's normally using with the Vapors. So that could potentially be a change that he's going to make. And, not a big deal, but it's stuff that I like to spot. It's when players change what type of gear they're using. He will be of great help to this team going forward. He's one of the core players. He's one of the best power forwards in the league. He's got a great shot. He uses his size well to work to the interior of the ice. He hits. He does all kinds of stuff. Andrei Svechnikov is definitely one of the most valuable guys on this team. Sometimes he is the most valuable guy on the team. So it's going to be really good to have him back. In some other lighthearted and cool news, for those of you who don't know, but judging by some of the stuff he's done to help out his goalies, you can kind of tell at times, Jacob Slavin actually, part of the time that he played growing up was playing goalie. So he threw the pads on and he was out there at Invisalign Arena having some fun doing that. So funny note about the night that the David Ayers game happened. Apparently Ryan Dzingel was really chomping at the bit for a chance to play goalie because that's the position he actually wanted to play, and he was apparently begging to do it. So the Hurricanes are just going to try and have unlimited goaltending depth. Between him and Jorge Alves, we're going to be fine. The Hurricanes have announced what theme nights they're going to do. They've basically got all the same usual ones that they have. This year, I want to try and make it to Whalers Night, and I would love to take my dad, just because of the whole 80s theme and everything like that, and he was around for a lot of that, so I think that he would absolutely love to go to that game. So him and I are going to try and go to Whalers Night this year, which will be against the New Jersey Devils. So I'm really looking forward to that, so I'm hoping that we'll get to do that, and that'll be a lot of fun. One thing I would like the Hurricanes to add, and I actually will do an individual video about this at some point, I would like to see them do a 90s night, and I have some really cool ideas with that I don't think it'll ever happen, but it's just some stuff that I will throw out there as far as cool things that I would like to see. And additionally, in another video, I'm going to talk about some of the really cool stuff that minor league hockey games have as far as theme nights go and everything like that. This year, I plan on taking my dog to a couple of games, one in Fayetteville with the Marksmen, and then Roanoke also usually has one with the Rail Yard Dogs, which if any team is going to have a bring your dog to the game night, it should be them, where as long as you show that your dogs are vaccinated and everything like that, they typically call it pucks and paws, you can show that your dogs have all their shots and everything like that, and you can bring them in with you, and I would really love to do that. I would love to take my dog to a hockey game. I didn't get the chance to do it last season, but I'm planning on doing it this coming season. Doing something like that in an NHL game, however, I can understand is going to be pretty difficult, if not impossible. Minor league hockey, there's a lot less that you have to worry about as far as, like, how many people are coming to the game and everything like that. So I would really enjoy just being able to bring my dog to a hockey game, though, just to say I did it once. It might be a little bit of a headache to bring him because he can get a little anxious sometimes, but just to be able to say that I did it, I would absolutely love that. So the thing with the theme nights is they've kind of been doing the same ones over and over again. I didn't really like the Whalers thing at first. I thought that I'm like, we're the Hurricanes, not the Whalers. We need to embrace the whole Carolina thing, not the Hartford thing. But that actually ended up being a good decision because it brought some new fans into the fold, or fans that returned from the Hartford days and decided to support the Hurricanes. You reached out to them. There's not many that did that. You reached out to them, though, and you kind of brought them some of them back into the fold. And overall, basically, you found a way to have a very unique spin on an 80s night. And at the same time, you managed to embrace the heritage of the team. So I think that that's actually probably the coolest theme night that they have. And it's the least generic one out of all of them, so I'm hoping that maybe they come up with some more stuff. Having NASCAR Day is really cool. Obviously, the Hurricanes are the only team in the league that does that. I just wish they'd play against Nashville that night as opposed to Minnesota, but that's just me. I mean, the thematics of why are pretty obvious there, but that's all for the small segment news. We're going to go on to the prospect development camp news, and there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot to dissect, and we're still not even going to get into all of it. First note about development camp. Unfortunately, Dominic Finsor, who is currently playing at Boston University, he was unable to make it to the camp due to an unspecified injury. He was a 2019 third-round pick. They signed him to a 2-year entry-level contract in April, but unfortunately he didn't get to attend development camp, and I haven't seen if anything's been disclosed about whatever injury it is. I imagine it's not that serious, and I imagine he'll still be at training camp later on before the season starts, so we'll see. We're going to get into talking about Prospects Development Camp, which just recently wrapped up. So it's 4 days long, and a lot of it is off-ice stuff. There's not a whole lot of on-ice stuff. We're going to basically look at, more than anything, a lot of quotes from the development coach, Peter Harold. And I want to give a big shout-out to Ryan Henkel at the Hockey News. Most of this stuff I got from following the articles that he was writing in the day-by-day notebooks and day-by-day quote books. He's doing a really good job, so I just want to give credit where it's due, so big shout out to him. So on my right, your left, is a picture of Peter Harold. He's the Canes development coach, and he has had a very busy week. So we're not going to talk about everything he said about every single prospect, but we're going to talk about the stuff that he said on, some of the big picture items and some of the more high-profile prospects like Scott Morrow, Bradley Naidoo, and Felix Unger, who we have a ton of news about in regards to him since he signed his entry-level deal. So one of the cool things they did, and I'm sure every team does this, but with someone like Bill Bernston at the helm for the off-ice training stuff, he has a heavy, heavy emphasis on taking care of your body off the ice. So one of the things here that's pictured here, for those of you on audio, I'll describe it. So basically it has a handout here, and I'm sure that there was a lot more paperwork than this, but it's a handout here, nutrition and eating for what you're planning to do that day in terms of like on-ice or off-ice training and everything like that. So it's got two different pie charts at the top, one for heavy training days where it says 50% carbs, 25% protein, and 25% fruits and veggies. That's for heavy training days. And then for moderate training days, it changes it up to where it's 33% for each of those three things. That's pretty awesome that they show stuff like this and everything. A lot of these guys, I would wager to say all of them are already practicing something like this, but having good nutrition habits is always a good thing to reinforce. And, maybe these guys will make a few adjustments based on stuff like that. For example, when I was in my 20s and I had a game later that night, even though I was just playing beer league, I was taking in way more carbs than I needed to. I had enough. I needed the energy, absolutely, but I basically said, well, if I'm playing hockey tonight, that justifies me eating a bunch of pasta, which is another way of saying I wanted to eat a bunch of pasta. So that was me kind of lying to myself. It's a good thing that they reinforce stuff like this. So another cool thing they talk about here is talking about nutrient timing. So, you may remember when you were growing up, they say, don't eat 30 minutes before you go in the pool or something like that. This is kind of along those lines, where it says 3 to 5 hours before a typical meal, focus on carbohydrates and everything like that. 30 minutes before you have 30 to 60 grams of carbs plus fluid, and then it talks about in recovery after you're done with, your workout and everything like that, 20 to 30 grams of protein, 40 to 60 grams of carbs and fluid. So that's a really good bit of information for these kids to have and everything like that, even though, like I said, they probably already know it, but, just in case that they don't, or it's always also a good thing to reinforce, because two of the guys who really made the off-ice training and the nutrition thing a factor almost across the board for every single player were in the Hurricanes organization, of which one of them is still there. He's a guy named Brenda Moore. You may have heard of him. Gary Roberts also placed a very big emphasis on off-ice training, and he was a Hurricane at one point. Him making some changes to, doing off-ice workouts and having good nutrition extended his career because he was afraid that it was over. Now, one of the things that I find really cool here, everyone knows that you should hydrate. Everyone knows you should drink water, especially when it's hot, and also especially when you're trying to be a professional athlete or, in general. I can come up with a million different reasons why you should drink water. So basically, he says here, drink 16 to 24 ounces for every pound of body weight. That's good stuff. Now, here's what I think is the most important part of this. He has a packing list for trips. So, like, when these guys go on the road and everything like that, and, it has a list of the recommended foods that you should pack for snacks and everything like that. Cereal, trail mix, whole grain stuff, proteins, tuna packets, apples, bananas, oranges. Bananas in particular is something I used to eat a whole lot for the sake of getting my potassium, but now I've kind of gotten to where I like avocados better personally. Applesauce, beef and turkey jerky, peanut butter, bread and bagels, protein and granola bars. So this is all good information basically saying, stay away from, the sweets and all the bad stuff for you and everything like that. And there's also a little checklist here that's a little bit too extensive for me to, take the time to read on the show, but it's essentially a way to fraction out what you put in to make smoothies with, and I think that that's really cool too, because that's something you can make quick and on the go, and it's like a really hearty snack and everything like that. Gives you plenty of nutrition, gives you plenty of energy and everything like that. So this is a good thing for these guys to take back to, when they get ready to go play overseas or play in college, because eventually they're going to get their shot to make the team, and they want to try and make the most of it. So this, the next few things are going to be quotes from Peter Harold, who was the development coach there for the Hurricanes. First one here, he says, "Some guys never make it, but it is our job to do everything we can to give them every opportunity there. We give everybody the same type of treatment. We're just trying to give them everything we can, and some guys take it and progress faster, and some guys it takes a little longer. Unfortunately, some don't make it, and that's just the nature of it, but our job is to make sure we're giving them everything that they need. If they work hard and they want it, most guys are going to make it that way. That's just kind of the message from us." So the overall purpose of Prospects Development Camp, it's not the same thing as training camp. Think of it as a orientation course. Think of it as it's a way of introducing these guys that are currently prospects to the basics of what it would be like to be in the Hurricanes organization, and they can start having familiar faces and everything like that. Brenda Moore was also in attendance. He says, "It's really more than anything just for comfort, so these kids get to meet everyone, and when they do come back, it's not like, oh, I don't know anything, I don't know where anything is, I don't know who's running the show, who the trainers are. It's all about the little things that help you acclimate when you do come back, and that's important." So yeah, so basically, when these guys come back to attend training camp, which pretty much every single one of them will, when they come back to attend training camp and everything like that, they'll at least have some familiarization with where everything is and who does what. And that's really important as far as streamlining the process of developing the players even this early on. One more quote here from Brenda Moore. "I think over the years how we do this has changed. because really, what are they getting out of it? They're here for 4 days, so you try and give them a sense of what this level is about. So a little bit of testing and just things that are going to help you when you leave. What are you taking away when you go back and to wherever you're playing to get a little bit better and understand that if and when you do get here, what's expected. So that's just kind of his way of, he went in there, and there's a video of him on Twitter that was really cool, where he goes in there, he talks to the guys, he kind of sets the tone, let them know what the organization is about. As far as a coach being tethered to his organization, a coach having emotional attachment and being very embedded in their organization, I don't think you will find a coach that is more involved with their organization than Brenda Moore is. He's the franchise most significant player at the moment. That's going to change, don't worry. But for good reasons. He's definitely the heartbeat of the Hurricanes organization. So to quote some stuff that Ryan Henkel wrote here, development camp is almost entirely off-ice focused these days with fitness training, informational sessions, and things of that nature, because really the main goal is to help the prospects take at least something with them from camp to continue better themselves. So yeah, that's the big thing about it. These guys are taking stuff back to their collegiate teams, back to their teams overseas, everything like that, so that they can further develop and get better and everything and have a better shot at making the team, because you can load up your depth chart, but if you don't develop your prospects, it doesn't do much good for you. And also, if you develop them and decide not to keep them, that's trade assets that you could potentially have in the future. So one thing he states here is the stationary bike test, and it's not like the regular stationary bike that you're thinking of. We're talking about like the assault bike. I mean, he says stationary bike, but it's the assault bike, and the assault bike is significantly more difficult, and it really gives you a really hard workout. So Canes development coach Peter Harold is quoted here as saying, in regards to the group, it's a good group, honestly. They all have good personalities. They're good kids. A lot of them worked really, really hard on the bike, and a lot of them did well too. Maybe a little pleasantly surprised at how well they did in some of their off-ice testing. They've been great so far, so hopefully it keeps going that way. So that's one of the things. There's this heavy emphasis on fitness in the game now, because one of the ways that you separate yourself from 90% of the competition right off the hop is taking care of yourself physically and nutrition-wise and everything like that, and staying out of trouble. So, you eliminate a lot of people who are really good at hockey, but they go out and they get drunk and they do something stupid and get in trouble with the law, or they don't take care of themselves and they don't stay in shape. So when you do those things well, you've laid a really good foundation, and they're reinforcing that there with this. So two of the picks that we had this year in the 2023 draft comment on the bike here. One of them is Jaden Perron. He was the third-round pick for the Hurricanes this season. He says the bike was definitely tough. Had just about everyone out. And Bradley Naidoo says it was hard, but obviously it's something you have to do. Hopefully next year I'll be able to be better at it and get better results. So yeah, that's the right attitude to have. I've never done an assault bike test that difficult, but I've done one before that I kind of put myself through. And yeah, that thing, it whips you. One day when I have the room for one, like when I have a garage one day or some way I can have a home gym, I'm going to have one of those. I had a Schwinn Airdyne growing up, or my parents did anyway, and I could use it once in a while. Like I would be able to take it out on the deck and use it. That thing, it works your whole body. But it's a low-impact type of deal and everything like that. Assault bikes were initially seen as more of a rehabbing an injury recovery type of piece of equipment, but now you're seeing that they're capable of much more than that. So one of the things that they were doing on day one to try and dial in guys' sprints and everything like that, dial in, getting their stride right and everything like that, they did a resistance band test, and this is what's known as the 1080 sprint. Peter Harold is quoted as saying, the 1080 sprint is a way to measure force production, so we can kind of dial in not only their stride, but it helps our strength and conditioning guys develop their off-ice workout programs to see what they need. The game's played on the ice, and it's hard to really get a clear measure of that stuff objectively off the ice, so that actually helps us a lot. It's a lot for the off-ice program than the on-ice stuff. So yeah, basically what he's saying there is, they take those metrics that they get from that and they say, okay, this guy needs to do more calf raises, this guy needs to do more squats, this guy needs to develop better core strength. Like he may have great stride extension, but he may need, to put some more power into his legs. Or this guy has an amazing stride extension, he gets everything out of it, he uses every inch of his legs, every inch of his core, but if he gets stronger, that'll be even more effective. So he might do it at the same speed, but he'll get more distance per push, things like that. Like the stuff they do with the technology and how they measure stuff now, like with the resistance band skates and everything that they're talking about here, is incredibly cool. The only thing I've ever personally done like this, I'd put one of those parachutes on my back and skated around with it one time, and boy, let me tell you, that is hard. So Scott Morrow commented on the resistance band test. He says, it's to test whether there's imbalances between your legs or just to see how powerful you are as a skater. And Scott Morrow, he's going to be talked about a little bit more later on in the show here. He's, out of everyone who's been at Prospect Development Camp and probably everybody who's going to be at training camp later this season, we're not going to see him yet. But I think that out of everybody who's in the current prospect pool, he's who you're going to see make the show next. So they did some sled hockey stuff with the Hurricanes Sled Hockey organization. That was really cool. Jaden Perron in particular was really wanting to get involved and do this stuff. He was really excited about it. So the sled hockey groups consists of some people who were born with congenital disorders and some people who unfortunately who may have been wounded in combat while serving in the military and everything like that, and other various disabilities that don't allow them to really stand up and play. So I really think it's cool that they did this stuff right here. In addition to that, they also did Triangle. They joined in with Triangle Special Hockey Association, an organization that does stuff for players who require special needs to play and everything like that. And that was really cool that they got involved doing stuff like that too. So any group that really loves doing stuff like this, and these guys look like they enjoyed every single second that they were doing with it and everything like that, this is really cool, like that they got involved this early with the community and everything well before even, doing anything with training camp and everything like that. But that's really heartwarming to see that, and good on all these guys for doing that. So we've got some stuff here from Canes goaltending coach Jason Mazzotti. So for goaltenders, the on-ice sessions are about repetitions and building muscle memory for good habits. Mazzotti is quoted as saying, "These are guys that I work with all year, so I kind of try and design things for the guys that are around at the time. The big thing you hear about in goaltending is tracking. It's just these guys following the puck around with their eyes getting square at the same time. Before the game action, which started later in the afternoon, the goaltenders took to the ice in the morning, had an impromptu 2-on-2 game between themselves. I spend time with puck handling," Mazzotti also says. "You kind of have to know what your organization is looking for, and Roddy wants his netminders to play the puck a lot." That's absolutely true. I've never seen goalies play the puck as much as they do in Carolina. That's one of the reasons why Scott Darling didn't work out here. When he was playing in Chicago, he almost never played the puck, whereas the Hurricanes, there's always been an emphasis on, hey, be decisive, get the puck, play the puck. But there's definitely a heavy emphasis on that in the Hurricanes organization for if you play the puck, it's more time that the other team is not in Carolina's zone. It's less saves that the goalie has to make. It's less high danger chances that you give up. So yeah, that's always been a big emphasis with the Hurricanes, especially with Brenda Moore at the helm. There's always been an emphasis on players playing the puck. That's why Peter Mrazek got the starting job a few years ago, and rightfully so. That was one of the biggest differences between him and Scott Darling. By chance have seen any of the video of the goalies doing the impromptu 2-on-2 game, that stuff was hilarious and it was really fun to watch. And that's one of the important things. Yes, take it serious. Yes, it's potentially going to be your job that you're going to get paid a lot of money to do, and something I've even lost sight of, even though I've never gotten anywhere close to getting paid to play in my life. Don't ever let it stop being fun, otherwise you're defeating the purpose of playing. It's got to be fun. So it's good to stay loose. It's good to do little things like that, and they also help build your fundamentals and everything like that. Yeah, whatever you do, try your best. Don't let playing a game for a living become not fun, because if it stops being fun, you're going to play worse anyway. Canes capped off the week with some 3-on-3. After that, they split into 2-on-2, and these games were continuous, so they just kept playing and everything like that. And then they closed off the last on-ice session with a shootout. I would have loved to have been able to been in town to watch this. I miss living in North Carolina, I really do. And then, in addition to that, once they completed all that stuff, they went over and they went to the go-kart track over yonder and went and did that, which I don't know if any of these guys had ever gotten to do that before. If not, that stuff's fun. I would really love to go to that go-kart track again. This is a reoccurring theme in the team-building exercises that the Hurricanes have, because you may remember a couple of seasons ago, I want to say it was in the 2021 season, the team went over and did that, and very fittingly so, Jesper Fast ended up being the guy who won, so he lived up to his name. So it's really cool to see the team doing stuff like this, and it's good for building team bonding and everything like that, and helping guys get to know each other and maintain that competitive edge without it always being an on-ice thing. Healthy rivalries and pushing each other to get better. So as previously mentioned, I think out of all the prospects that are there, and this is I don't want to say a general consensus, but a lot of other people that are in the know believe this as well. And my personal assessment of the situation is that everybody, out of everyone who's there, Scott Morrow is who we're going to see the soonest. And he was asked if he's was anxious to make the team, and he's quoted as saying, "That's not really what I'm focused on from a day-to-day standpoint. I have a lot of things that I need to improve before I get to that point. I have a short-term kind of focus right now. I'm just trying to get better every day." So I've talked about Scott Morrow on this channel before. He's one of the prospects that I'm really excited about, and I'm looking to put together a highlight package for him as well and do an analysis on him. And I'm going to talk about the Nikishin highlight and analysis thing here near the end of the show. But Scott Morrow is definitely looking pretty good. I've been watching some of his stuff from where he's been playing at UMass and everything like that. Putting a highlight package together of him is actually going to be a little bit easier. Finding footage of Nikishin has been kind of difficult, but I did find a workaround for that, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So one of the biggest reasons he wanted to go back to college for another season was to put on some more size and to get himself more, physically matured and ready for the show and everything like that. And this is a good decision for him to take his time developing, because the Hurricanes are definitely not hurting for defensemen. Right now, we actually basically have too many defensemen. So to close out the stuff here on Prospects Development Camp, we got a couple more quotes from Peter Harold regarding Felix Unger. Unger Sarum is probably more of a playmaker, just a very, very high in the hockey sense. We're looking forward to seeing him in the pro leagues over in Europe this year. But when he gets here, I think he's going to be more of a playmaker. That's the funny thing, though. They're 18, and you just never know. Hopefully they can add different dimensions to their game as they get older, but they were both very impressive in these two areas effectively. You can never have too many playmakers. Carolina's got a decent amount of them now, but we're not going to see this guy for a while, so he's got plenty of time to go overseas and play in Sweden and develop and everything like that, so we'll watch his career with great interest. Peter Harold says in regards to that, Bradley Naidoo is a very good skater, and he's got an elite shot. He's a goal scorer, so for us, that's what you hope he's doing at the next level too. He just has a very good skill set in that sense, probably has to get a little bit bigger like most of these guys. A lot of them are 18, so they got to get bigger and stronger, but he projects to be more of a shooter and scorer. And that's what I was thinking about with Bradley Naidoo as well. Even back when I was doing the draft video the day before the draft, that was the one thing that stood out to me. Bradley Naidoo is a sniper. So now that he's going to go play collegiately and he can develop that and everything, because he's going to play at a level that's going to be a lot harder to score than what it was in the BCHL and everything like that. If he keeps putting a puck in the net consistently as he continues to move up in the world and everything like that, this is someone that could be incredibly useful to the Hurricanes. If I had to rank the prospects right now out of who would be the most likely that we're going to see in a couple of years and everything like that, so, barring the geopolitical situation, Nikishin, I'm 99% sure he'll make the team pretty much immediately. Scott Morrow, I think after another collegiate season, if not this season, next season, he'll be good to go, and I think he'll join the team depending on what the team decides to do in regards to Brent Burns, and if Brett Pesce's still around in particular, and Bradley Naidoo, and then Felix Unger Sarum, who we have one little last piece of news regarding him that we're going to get to in a minute. But Bradley Naidoo does skate incredibly well. His value is definitely going to be in the offensive zone. He's going to be a guy who scores a lot of goals if he continues to develop the way that he's going. So to cap off the Prospects Development Camp news, Felix Unger Sarum signed his entry-level deal. So to quote here, Don Waddell, president and general manager of the National Hockey League's Carolina Hurricanes, today announced that the team has signed forward Felix Unger Sarum to a 3-year entry-level contract. The deal will pay Unger Sarum $775,000 at the NHL level and $82,500 at the American Hockey League level through 2025-26. He will also receive a signing bonus of $255,000. Felix is a dynamic playmaker with great offensive instincts, said Waddell. He was one of the youngest players in the draft, and we're excited to see how he continues to improve and develop. And one side note regarding that contract, since Unger Sarum is only 17 and his birthday is September 14th, the contract is eligible to slide up 2 seasons so long as he doesn't play in the NHL or AHL. The rule is that if you are 18 or 19 years old as of September 15th of that year, the start of the contract can slide to the following year. So that's a good thing for the Hurricanes, considering, it would take a while to develop this guy, and we got plenty of players that are still, currently under contract with the team and currently on the roster and everything like that. And with not having an AHL affiliate, they can just let him play overseas for a year, and then that's not taking any bites out of his entry-level deal. So that's a good signing to do at this particular time. So that does it for the Prospect Development Camp notes and everything like that. So here's some other stuff that I want to talk about that I've got coming up. So the highlight package and analysis that I wanted to do for Alexander Nikishin, about 3/4 of it is done. The problem with it is I couldn't find full KHL games to really analyze his poke checking ability and defense and everything like that. I've got plenty of his scoring, plenty of his playmaking, plenty of his hits. So what I actually did decide to find, because I didn't watch this at the time it occurred because it didn't really interest me, I found a full replay of the game where he played with the Russian Olympic Committee versus Finland in the gold medal game in the Beijing Olympics. So I decided to use a few things from that to analyze his defensive play, and there's plenty there too. I don't want to say it's a deficient part of his game because I don't see a true deficiency in Alexander Nikishin's game other than he's got a bit of a temper and it gets him into trouble sometimes, but I'd rather have someone who needs to be toned down than someone who needs to be ramped up. But there's plenty there as far as his physicality and his playmaking ability and everything like that. So I needed something to analyze his gap control and his poke checking, and I did find it with that video. So once I'm done editing that, which I'm hoping I'll have it out in about a week and a half or so, I think that'll be a pretty good video. I've also started the Scott Morrow one. The Scott Morrow one's easier to make because Scott Morrow's more of a puck mover, more of an offensive defenseman, so there's plenty of highlights of him doing that type of stuff, and it's a little bit easier to make it stand out and everything like that. But the kid's also not a traffic cone either. So I would categorize Nikishin as a complete defenseman, which is why I wanted to find a little bit more footage on him that I felt like could quantify that and that I could put it into a video. So 2 things I would like to put out during the week is 1, 5 picks that I think could be potentially being inducted into the Carolina Hurricanes Hall of Fame when they do Hall of Fame night next season. And I would also like to do a video ranking the sweaters from beginning to end with the Adidas era coming to an end. And I plan on having both those videos out at some point this week. So hopefully we'll get some sort of news on the Erik Karlsson, Tarasenko, Tony DeAngelo front because everything has just been absolutely quiet. I was hoping if I pushed the show till Sunday like I pushed it to Saturday last weekend that we would get some sort of information on that, so I'd have a lot more to talk about in that, but luckily Prospects Development Camp gave plenty to talk about and everything like that. So I'm going to upload this one. I've got some more GoPro footage from where I've been playing that I'm going to upload tonight, and that'll be a whole lot of fun and everything. Like, you get to see me say some very bad words at one point during one of them because I rang it off the crossbar and everything like that. Sorry about the camera focus going in and out a few times. It wasn't nearly as bad as it was the last time I recorded a video at night. I'm going to play around with the settings and see why it's doing that and everything. Once I start making some money from donations and everything like that, I think the first $600 or so, I'm going to put that away and I'm going to get me some sort of good DSLR camera or something like that so I won't have to worry about it anymore. But the Logitech C920 is doing the job for right now, and from there we'll have some more. That's all I've got for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share the video, all the YouTube stuff. I really appreciate all the help. I'm up to, I think, 56 subscribers now. I really appreciate the comments. Keep bringing those, and I'll still keep doing those every week. So thank you very much for all your support, and I'll see you next time.